Impulse Parents. This is Miss Consuela, and I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about how to deal with some big feelings that you might be experiencing at home. You're spending a lot more time with your kids. The routines are inconsistent, so it's totally normal for your children to have behaviors and have a hard time dealing with their emotions. And just wanted to give some tips for how to understand that and how to deal with that. I'll be talking about dysregulation in the terms of hyper arousal and hypoarousal, and then we'll talk about co-regulation, and we'll talk about some techniques that teachers use in the classrooms. First off, when your child is feeling big feelings, so maybe they're just so angry that they can't calm themselves down, or they're extremely sad, or just really frustrated, and they're having a hard time getting back. They're having a hard time reining in their emotions. We would call that dysregulation. Dysregulation can be defined as the inability of someone to regulate the intensity and duration of their emotions. If we're talking about that in terms of arousal, which is like the brain's responsiveness and receptivity to getting input, to understanding things. So if someone is hyper aroused, they might have an elevated heartbeat, they might be breathing fast, they might be throwing a tantrum, just big movements, big feelings. They're just trying to fight off whatever's happening. Hypoarousal would manifest in a child who is super quiet. Maybe they just want to hide away in a corner. They might just say, I need space, I'm walking away, I'm going to take a nap, just refusing to deal with anything. That would be hypoarousal. So when the brain is not hyper-aroused or hypoaroused, they're in this area of arousal, which is the learning zone. They're able to actually process information. They will respond to logic. Believe it or not, your child can respond to logic and reason when they're in that sweet spot in the learning zone. When the child feels like they're safe, they are able to have a discussion with you about the situation. When the child is hyper aroused or hypo aroused, brain is not having it, just not ready for that. So there is dysregulation. Child can't rein in their emotions. They're hyper aroused, throwing tantrums, or they're hypo aroused and they're shutting down and they don't want anything to do with you. To get them back to our learning zone, we can use co-regulation. Co-regulation is when a caregiver, so you, a nanny, a teacher, grandparents, whenever someone that they trust is able to help the child become regulated by being there with them in their emotion. They're helping them process it. They're just right there with them. With co-regulation, there's 3 main steps that you want to hit to help your child come back into our learning zone. So the first is that you want them to feel safe. You might see someone throwing a tantrum, and even though it'll make you mad, which is totally fine, you'll want to say something like, you're okay, nothing is dangerous here, hey, everything's okay, you're safe. Part of making the child feel safe is to get down to their level. It's really imposing for you to be standing above them, which you almost always are because you're taller than them. But if you can get down on your knees, or even sit down and just try to get at or below their eye level. So you might even have to kind of tilt your head down, just something like that. Just try to get low, physically low. You will seem less threatening. I know that sounds crazy that you would be threatening to your child, but they're in that state of mind where their brain is almost in flight or fight mode. The HPA axis is elevated and they're extra on their guard. So if you can make yourself seem like less of a threat as you're telling them it's safe, hey, you're all right, dude, that's going to be helpful. We do that a lot, even when there isn't big emotions, a lot of times the teachers do try to be down at the child's level when we're talking to them. So the next step is to make them feel seen in their emotions. You can, hopefully you can make it a conversation if they're able to. It can go something like, "Oh, you've got big feelings right now. What's going on? What are you feeling?" Um, you might have to lead them a little bit if they're not ready for it, and say something like, "You're kind of scowling and your eyebrows are furrowed. You look like you might be angry. Are you angry right now? Yeah, you're crossing your arms, or oh, you've got your hands in fists. Are you frustrated about something? Or oh, you're crying. Your eyes look really sad. Are you sad right now? Are you feeling sad?" To help them label what they're feeling can really help. Because when they're hyper or hypo aroused, they're not quite grasping onto these emotional concepts, these abstract ideas. It's just a storm, and they don't know how to get back down to land. So you even giving a label to their emotions helps them have something to hold on to. They're just feeling this, and then they hear you say that they might be angry, and they're like, "Oh, I think, yeah, I am angry. That's it. I'm angry." That is part of co-regulation. And the next step is to empathize with their feelings. You might not agree with them being mad that they couldn't have a fourth cheese stick, but we can at least recognize why they would be mad for not getting a fourth cheese stick. So you can say something like, "I understand you're really mad about not getting your fourth cheese stick. It's okay to feel mad when you don't get what you want." And there comes a big but after that. But to say, "Yeah, you're sad that we had to turn off the TV so you could go to bed. I would be sad too if I had to stop watching my favorite TV show." You're letting them know that having big feelings is reasonable and it's okay. We're not shaming them for getting mad for what we find to be a silly reason to get mad. To them, it's not silly at all. Co-regulating with your child to bring them back in from dysregulation is really important. It helps them feel safe when they are having these feelings that are out of control. They can feel safe with you. They know that you're not going to judge them. They know that you're someone that they can trust to explore these feelings with, and that you are their anchor. You're going to help them come back down to land when they get caught up in their twister of emotions. They know that you're going to be there to help them. When your child is having these big feelings, is dysregulated, and they're throwing a tantrum, or they've just gone to the room and they refuse to eat the snack that you've spent 20 minutes preparing for them, it's totally fine to feel frustrated. You can get mad at your kid for acting like this. That's going to happen. I've done it. It's okay to get mad at your kid for going to the bedroom and slamming their door shut. You can get frustrated or embarrassed that they are on the floor kicking and screaming. It's totally normal to feel that way. But we just have to remember that they're not trying to make you mad. They are asking for help. When they are just throwing their markers, when they are screaming in your face, as personal as that feels, they're not trying to make you mad. They have no control over their emotions in that moment, and they need your help. So, after we have dealt with the tantrum, and we have practiced co-regulation to bring them back into the learning zone, this is a good time to practice problem solving. They're not hyper-aroused, they're not hypo-aroused, they're ready to listen to logic and reason to an extent. What we like to do in the classroom a lot is to frame it as a problem that needs a solution. Now, this isn't your problem, it's your child's problem. So let's try to look at it from the child's point of view. Your problem is that you want your child to stop using their iPad for just a moment so that you can take a bath. That's your problem. Their problem is that they are trying to watch PJ Masks and you're trying to make them stop, and they don't want to stop. So when we ask, well, what is our problem here? Expect to hear it from the child's point of view. And when you suggest that we brainstorm a solution, let's look at it from that point. So we have make them feel safe, make them feel seen, um, empathize with their emotions, maybe try to reason with them, problem solve after they're regulated. And then I would say a fifth optional step would be to restate your boundaries. If your child has been screaming or hitting or kicking or having some kind of tantrum where they're doing things that are not acceptable, tell them that it's not acceptable. Don't tell them in the moment when they're having the tantrum because they're not ready to hear that. But after everyone has calmed down, we've figured out the problems, then you can restate your boundaries. You cannot hit mommy. You cannot scream in daddy's face. That is not okay. If you are consistent and reasonable with your boundaries, that's going to help your child feel safer in the long run, because your child cannot scream at you. They know that you're not going to scream at them either. So it's going to make them feel safer all around. Having structure, having boundaries does help the child feel safer. And when the child feels safer, they're less, they will become dysregulated less, or it will be easier for them to become regulated again or co-regulate with you. So just to sum it up again, we have 5 steps. A couple of them are optional, but 5 main steps for dealing with these big feelings. We want to make them feel safe, make them feel seen, have empathy, problem solve, and have boundaries. Practicing all of those steps will help your child understand their emotions, help them come back into our brain's learning zone, will help your child feel safe when they have these big feelings. They'll feel safe in their environment, and they'll feel safe with you when this is happening. Should we be practicing these 5 steps every single time a child is upset? Not necessarily. No, I mean, you're not going to use a hammer to change the wheel of a bike. You need to assess the situation to see if it's appropriate to use these steps. If your child is just sobbing because they have to go to bed and they really, really, really don't want to, they want to keep doing their art, yeah, let's do these co-regulation steps. If your child is pretending to cry and they've got like their face is all screwed up but there's no actual tears and they just really want to stay up longer, no, I wouldn't do these steps. I probably pretty much skip to the logic part because they're not really dysregulated. They're pretending so that they can stay up a little later. Yeah, kids do that. I think the last thing that I want to say is it's okay if you don't do these steps when you probably should. It's okay to get angry at your child. It's okay to get really frustrated and just grab them and put them in their bedroom and say, it's time for your nap. It's okay to take their iPad and say, that's enough, stop screaming at me. It's okay to snap at your child. These things happen. We're not perfect. I think as long as you can take a step back and realize, that could have gone better. As long as you can look at yourself and see where you can improve and actively strive towards improving, that's what really counts. Just the fact that you're even watching this video really means a lot, because it shows that you're really trying, and that's all we really can do is just keep trying to be better. So thank you. Thank you for actively trying to work with your child and to work with your teachers. It means a lot to us. We're really grateful that we've got you guys as part of our classroom community, because we just couldn't do this without you. It can't be a one-way thing. It has to be all of us working together. So thank you. And that's it. Bye.